We are into services marketing, and within services marketing, we will look at the GAPS model. Now, this GAPS model, for those of us who know from history, was introduced by three stalwarts of services marketing. Parshuraman, our own IIT Madras fellow, Zitham, and Berry. These three people together formulated this GAPS model, and we would like to. There was a few additions later on. Of course, this was about 20 years back when they did it first. But then we need to know what it stands, how it is understood as of today. We will start with understanding the different players in that model. First of all, it is the customer. Customer will be the field which is indicated here in white, and we have the management. Certain things which happens within the management will appear in this light blue color. The customer has got expectations and needs. Needs really from which expectations arise. And we are showing it within dotted lines to understand that it is a little fuzzy. It is not exactly clear always because it's inside the mind of the customer. And relative to that, we have customers' experience, which is the perception. Post delivery, we have a perception of the delivery. So that these are the two things that the customer has. These are very much real for as far as the customer is concerned. Now, there is a difference between what he had expected initially and what his perception was post delivery. Now, this is the real gap that we need to understand in detail. The first one is the knowledge gap. Now, knowledge gap arises because the management, although it wants to understand the customer's expectations in as much detail as possible, the way the customer expects it and the way management understands it will be marginally different. And this is known as the knowledge gap. This essentially arises out of maybe changes in expectations within the customer, or maybe the management has not been able to fully grasp what the customer has told him. The next level that we have to get into is when the management understands that this expectation needs to be converted into a product, and that is translation into design and delivery specs of the product. Now, during this time, another set of people who are not necessarily the people who have spoken to the customer, these are people who are good in design, who are good in delivery. They need to understand the management's definition of the needs and then convert them with the existing resources into delivery specs. Now, here is where we have a standards gap. Standards gap because between what has been standardized as a product and between a bit difference between that standard product and what the management understood as the needs and expectations of the customer. Now, moving on from here, we have another set of people who will translate the designed and delivery specs into the execution of the product itself. Now, these are the people in the front line, typically in a service delivery situation, who will, based on the resources they have, try to deliver the product to the customer. Now, this change between the person who has designed it and the person who is delivering it leads to a delivery gap, which is also very real. Okay, now this delivery gap is added during this delivery gap. Another thing is happening, and that is advertising and sales promises are being done based on the design and delivery specs. Now, this leads to another gap between the delivery people and the people who are involved in advertising and sales promotion. Okay, and that is called the internal communication gap. Okay, so the fourth one, which is the IC gap. Now, this is where all the activity inside the management arena happens. Okay, outside here is the customer again. Now, after this delivery has taken place and after this advertisement has taken place, we now shift our focus back to the customer and found out what's happening with the customer. Now, when the execution happens, the customer has gets a perception of the execution. Okay, this and the delivery itself will cause a perception gap. On the other side, we have customer understanding or interpreting the sales promotion that is happening. This and the sales promotion itself will have a slight difference, and which is now called interpretation gap. Okay, difference between what was meant to be understood by the customer and what was actually understood by the customer. Now, after all this, we still have to understand that all this put together will result in the service delivery gap, which is gap number 7. Now, all these 7 put together is the actual gap between expectations and perceptions. Now, we have another small addition over here, and that is the customer's perceptions, interpretation, and the interpretation of the promotion, and the perception that he gets from the execution. Both together again frame his customer needs and expectations. This is shown in the red dotted loop, and this is where we come to the end of this presentation. Thank you.